Hey, what's up, guys? You're now listening to Devo with Uncle Theo. Today is day 164, and we're going to cover Esther chapters 4 through 6. Last time we left off, we saw the tension brewing between Haman and Mordecai, and we saw that it was deeper than just their relationship. This originated back in Exodus chapter 17 when Moses was fighting Amalek, and God said that I would utterly wipe the Amalekites from the face of the earth. And that shows up again with Saul and King Agag. And those descendants continue on to this point where Haman is an Agagite, and he not only wants to kill Mordecai, but he wants to extinguish all the Jews. That's what we pick up at in chapter 4, verse 1 says, when Mordecai learned all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and wailed loudly and bitterly. And so Mordecai is mourning like somebody has died. And you ask yourself, who's died? Nobody's died, but this is his expression of hopelessness. It's almost like he's saying, let's just go ahead and have the funeral because we're toast. So Esther tries to give Mordecai clothes, trying to get him to change out of the sackcloth and ashes. And so the point of this chapter is God's name has not been mentioned like we said before, but we need to come to the realization that it's impossible for man to turn this around. We need help. You see the irony there? Only God can turn this situation around. So in verse 7, Mordecai tells one of the eunuchs all that has happened and Haman's desire and promised to pay the king's treasury for the destruction of the Jews. And he also gave him a copy of the text of edict, which had been issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show Esther to inform her and to order her to go in to the king, implore his favor and plead with him for the people, for her people. And so that's where he is right now. He's saying, look, Esther, you have to go to the king. This is our only hope. And she says in verse 11 that I can't go to the king. The only person that can go to the king is only the one whom the king extends his scepter. And she says, besides, I have not been called for 30 days. What is Esther implying? Well, remember, one of the things about Xerxes is that he's a womanizer. She's implying that, look, he's moved on to another woman. He hadn't called for me in 30 days. And what's the other thing? He likes control. And see, he would have saw this as a sign of insubordination. We already saw what happened to Vashti. Whatever girl he has right now in his harem, you don't want to compete with her right now. You don't want to be found competing with that person because it could end very badly. And so she's saying it's impossible on my end too. And that's why verse 14 is so powerful. It says, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not attained royalty for such a time as this. And those are the key words. But who knows, you may have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. And that's the irony in this, right? Mordecai is speaking of providence, and it's irony because this is humanly impossible, but there may be a shot. It's a play on words. You see the doctrine of providence working here. So Esther asked for 3 days of fasting, and you don't even see the word prayer mentioned here with the fasting. It just emphasizes her paganism, or the narrator just intentionally omits it to keep that connection with God from the narrative, to keep the theme of showing how he's operating behind the scenes. Mordecai is desperate. Esther is desperate. She says, look, let's do this. If I perish, I perish. It's hopeless, not heroic, but hopeless. But this is where things start to get interesting in the providence of God. So chapter 5, Esther has the first banquet. What is the first thing she does after the 3 days of fasting? She puts on her royal robes. And this should ring a bell to you because Vashti got in trouble for something similar to this. So she should be very afraid. This is very risky. But in verse 2, the king extends his golden scepter to Esther. And you should say, wow, she finds grace. Verse 3, what do you want? I'll give it to you, up to half of my kingdom. And so what is ironic about this? He's supposed to be a womanizer, and now he's acting like he has only eyes for one woman. He's a one-woman man. Hey, Esther, what do you want? I'll give you half of my kingdom. I'll give you half. And another thing is he loves control, and he's willing to give that to Esther. You see God moving behind the scenes. God is turning all of that on its head. The king says, I'll give you whatever you want, up to half of the kingdom. And here's what Esther says. You want to know what I want, dear? Let's have a party. And in Hebrew, the nuance here is let's go have some drinking time. Why would she say that? Because remember, the king makes his best decisions drunk. And Esther knows this. And she's trying to get him intoxicated with partying and drinking. And you know what he says? He's like, oh, great idea. Let's do it. I like that idea. And so verse 6, they're drinking. You don't even see eating mentioned here. Why? Because the king makes his best decisions drunk. And so after drinking, the king says, what do you want? What do you wish? And you know what she says? We need some more wine. We need to up the drinking. Why would that be? Because the king makes his best decisions drunk. And she's like, I don't just need you tipsy. I need him sloppy drunk. And let's get Haman here. I want to have Haman here as well. And Haman is so proud that he got invited to this drinking festival. And during that time, he runs into Mordecai, who refuses to bow to him. And so he commands gallows to be built to hang him, 50, which is 75 feet. And this is the center of the entire narrative. And that moves us into chapter 6. And so the king couldn't fall asleep. He's probably drunk and hungover. And he says to his servants, please read me something that will put me to sleep. And the servants are like, we have the perfect thing for you. Let's read the records of what you have done. Let's read the chronicles, the king archives of your life. It doesn't get any more boring than that. Let's read about that. That'll certainly put you to sleep. And so think about how quote unquote random this is. The chronicles just so happen to fall on the pages of an event where guess who? Mordecai saved his life. And he says, wow, what honor or dignity has been bestowed on this man. So he's a proud man. He's like, my life is precious and somebody saved it. What have we done for him? We must have done something great. And what do his servants say? We didn't do anything. So he's like, wow, what? And at that time, now this is powerful. This is verse 5. Haman comes in to get killing orders to kill guess who? And at the same time, Xerxes is looking for a way to honor Mordecai. And in God's providence, Haman comes in to secure hanging Mordecai, and Xerxes wants to honor the very same man. And he says to Haman, hey, Haman, if I want to honor a man, what should I do for him? And Haman is prideful. Guess who he thinks that man is? He thinks it's him. So he waxes eloquent about what the king should do for this man. Let them bring a royal robe, which the king has worn, and the horse on which the king has ridden, and on whose head a royal crown has been placed. And let the robe and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble princes, and let him array the man whom the king desires and honor, and lead him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, thus it shall be done to the man the king wants to honor. I mean, he lets him have it. And the king says, In verse 10, he says, wow, that's really good. Haman, I need you to do all of that for Mordecai. Wow. He was just coming in to get killing orders for Mordecai. God reverses all this in one night. He uses drunkenness, insomnia, pride, and Haman's murderous plot. And he causes all those agendas to clash together regarding the same man of Mordecai. And he does that how? For his glory. This is the divine providence of all things working together for the good for those who love God. You see God being glorified in one sense, and you see man being taken care of for his good in the other. This is the perfect example if you want to see what Romans 8:28 looks like in action. Powerful reversal. Now Haman is under Mordecai. He's low and bowing before Mordecai. Haman is low and mourning, and he goes to his wife, and his wife says something very important. This is the closest we get to the mention of the name of God. He recounts to his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends, everything that had happened to him. And this is what Zeresh says. This is powerful. She said to him, if Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish origin, you will not overcome him, but you will surely fall before him. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. And the eunuchs come on the scene during this time and say, Haman, it's time for you to go to the banquet, which Esther had prepared. And so he still doesn't know God is still working behind the scenes. even here with Esther. Man, it's getting good. It's getting suspenseful. But we have to cut it off right here. And we'll pick up tomorrow with chapters 7 through 10. You guys take care and catch you next time.